Good afternoon. My name is Shanna. I am the Executive Director at Lighthouse Community Center in Wyoming. We are located in the campus of Calvary Church, kind of Byron Center and 36th Street area. Today I'm with Sara and Marin from Koinonia Counseling Services. They have their offices in our building and they offer a lot of different activities and counseling through them. So before COVID hit, they were offering this really cool art therapeutic group that was pretty awesome. I wish I could have gone to it, but my timing didn't work out. So I'm just going to let them introduce themselves, kind of let them tell you what they're up to, who they are, what they offer, and then we're just going to kind of have a conversation about mental health in 2020. So take it away.
Fun. Who's going first?
Go.
Okay.
I am Sara Rice. So I am an LLPC with Koinonia Counseling Center. I'm also a co-director there along with Marin, who you see along with us. I'm a mother of 4 and I've been married for about 14 years. Some of my specialties include trauma with dissociation, complex trauma, and of course, anxiety and depression.
Cool. My name is Marin Hann. I am, like Sara said, a co-director with her at Koinonia Counseling Center. And my specializations are also in trauma. I specialize in trauma and dissociative disorders, where it can be anything from like complex trauma of PTSD to dissociative identity disorder. So those are all the things I specialize in. And like any counselor, I can also see people that are struggling with depression or anxiety or anything related to that. So.
Awesome. And then tell us a little bit about what you do in the build. Tell us about the art group and then the other ways that you're able to see people in the building right now.
Cool. Want me to take that?
Yeah.
Okay. So our art group that we did was a therapeutic art group where Sara is actually fantastic at doing therapeutic art. What we would do is we would do an art project together, but it would have a therapeutic center focus around it. So it might be like a center focus of trying to express something that we wouldn't normally express with words in art, or a prompt to imagine a certain thing going on in your life, or sometimes just an art project to get you more into your body and to notice how your body is feeling and just make observations without judging that. And so that's what we would do with our therapeutic art group. And I forgot what the second thing I was supposed to say was.
Just kind of talk about how you're seeing patients right now and the accessibility and stuff like that.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So we right now, because of COVID, are seeing patients or clients. We're seeing them in person and through telehealth on video. So we can offer both of those options. We can see you in person at the office, right, where Byron Center and 36th is, or we can also see you through video chat on a secure platform that's like HIPAA compliant. So all of your information is private and safe. So we are seeing clients both ways right now.
Awesome. And has that telehealth been kind of a new thing since COVID hit? I've heard lots of different people in articles talk about how mental health services are like super available now and like really accessible because of COVID, and like insurance agencies are working with you. Is that true? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So telehealth before was available and some practitioners were using it, but it wasn't a widely practiced thing. Mainly because insurance companies, for some ridiculous reason, were not covering telehealth like they would cover in person. And so reimbursement was very difficult. But since COVID, that has been expanded. And so now, because of the situation and the pandemic that we're in, telehealth is widely available, and it's covered by insurance now. And so I haven't heard of an insurance that isn't covering telehealth right now. So it just makes it widely accessible to people that didn't have access to mental health before. There's now a lot more access, and you don't have to search really hard to find someone who can do telehealth. You have more choices about who you want to be your counselor and who you don't.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the introduction. So we're going to talk today kind of on ways to cope with 2020. So we can all say that it's been kind of an insane year, just with total craziness going on, and we've all reacted and handled it differently and in different ways. So you guys are going to chat with me today and all of us about how some tips and advice on how to help us cope and kind of be the best we can be during these times during the pandemic. I know for me, I struggled a lot with just worrying about what tomorrow's going to bring, not being in control, coping with just everyday struggles and how things kept changing from day to day. And just, so we're just going to talk, kind of go through things, how to best, just be the best we can be, and how to handle all the emotions and all the changes and all the crap that's going on this year. So I think at first you guys are going to start talking about maybe a family emotional thermometer, somehow to help your family talk more about how they're feeling in mental health. So I think that was our first topic on the docket.
Absolutely. So when we talk about mental health also includes everything that has to do with our thoughts, feelings, emotions. Everybody has thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Generally, everybody has thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And certain situations will trigger certain feelings or emotions. And we just kind of want to gauge on how we handle those thoughts and feelings and how they come out in our behavior. So that kind of leads to the family emotional thermometer. I know for myself, I have kids from 16, 13, 7, and one that turned 5 just recently over the summer. So I kind of have a different age range of kids and family members. My husband, of course, who I'm checking in with and just seeing how things are going. And anybody, of course, who's dealing with teenagers or preteens, lots of times you'll get the, it's okay, or maybe you don't get anything at all and they're in the room, especially, you know, since we had COVID hit. School was out in March, 6 months off of school, 6 months of, you know, seeing people on a regular basis, going to activities that you would normally do. So there's so many different feelings and emotions that have come up, being stuck with your family, my older kids being stuck with younger siblings. And sometimes people just don't want to talk or explain what's going on. So something really cool is to kind of create on your fridge or on a place that you guys gather on a regular basis, probably the fridge, because I think most people go for food. Something like, and you can find these on Pinterest, where each family member can have something where they can put, like, you know, happy, sad, angry, irritated, just, you know, for preteens. Sometimes they just don't want to talk, and there's not a real reason why they're mopey or distant. It's sometimes it is just because that's how they are, and, you know, things aren't going that great. So mom, dad, you know, aunts, uncles, grandma, grandparent, you know, whoever lives in your house can have a chance to have something to show, you know, okay, so I see that John's feeling a little so I kind of get why he's being a little short or a little distant with me. And then maybe just continue to check in with them verbally, and just to see how they're doing. Like, you still kind of feeling a little, and, you know, maybe you'll get, yeah, I kind of was, but now I'm feeling a little better. So just take the time, find something that works for your family, and check in with each family member. Each family member is important.
Yeah, I really like that. I know at our schools, they started doing that like last year or the year before, where they have just an emotional check-in every school day. They've got to fill out a Google form of how they're feeling so that the teacher can kind of gauge where they're at. But I never thought about doing it at home. And so that's just genius. So thank you.
Awesome. I can imagine too that it would help, you know, you have parents that get home from their different perspective places at work, or respective places at work, and you can kind of like, you get like caught up and like busy, and then you have like the kids and everything, or you have like, if you don't have children, you have like other things you're doing, you just get caught up in like doing tasks once you get home. So like if you made it a point to like go over to the fridge and just be like, my work day was this, and then like you both can just look and be like, oh, now I know why that person's tone is kind of like this, and kind of gauge like how the day was without waiting till maybe you sit down for dinner and go, so how was your day? Like, you can kind of get a feel for that before you sit down for dinner and go, how was your day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting lead into what Marin's going to talk about. You know, how I was saying that our kids were off of school mid-March, and, you know, our generation, especially with being stuck at home, is social media, Zoom meetings, Facebooks, Twitter. We not only have the coronavirus, but we have the election coming up. We have civil unrest in our country right now. So I think a great thing that Marin's kind of going to bring up are some of the boundaries with social media, things that may end up creating the thoughts and emotions from what we talked about just a moment ago.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that intro. So with boundaries on social media, there is not a person who uses social media who has not made a mistake on social media. I don't think there's one of us who's like has a clean reputation. No, I certainly don't have a clean reputation on social media. I wish, but sometimes we make mistakes and we just have to acknowledge, hey, I made a mistake. Social media is a relatively new, obviously in history, way to interact with people. It's something that we don't have a lot of years to understand like etiquette and like skill base for. And so because social media, especially when it was rising and now that it's more of like a household thing, it's just like here, we don't have like the framework to understand like how to communicate that way. It's a new form of communication, and it's kind of odd because like now, I mean, I know for a lot of us, we're like, social media is a regular part of my life. I don't need to explain to me how it's different than talking to somebody. But when you really sit there and you think about it, it's very different than how you communicate when you talk to someone, because one, you can sit and think about your response when you talk. If you do that, normally someone is like, why are you silent? If you just sit there forever and you're like thinking for a long time about your response, that's not normally good conversation etiquette, right? So that can be a pro in social media. And also like, it's very, once you post it, it's kind of instant, and it's kind of interesting because it's like a public platform. Before, we had to go to things like, we had to be a public speaker to announce something to like multiple people in the world. And now I can just go to my phone and I can announce whatever I'm feeling to multiple people in the world. And if I want, I can announce it to the entire world that's on there. So you have this ability to communicate in a new way that's very easy, it's very convenient, and we also don't have a lot of skills to teach us how to do that because it's kind of new for us in like, if we compare it to like how long we've had like the telephone or how long we've had the mail service or something like that. So some easy things to think about right now, because we're all frustrated right now. We're frustrated maybe about different things, but every single person is frustrated. This is a stressful time. 2020 is like a year to go down in history. It's weird. I've seen so much, speaking of social media, I've seen so many memes about like, I thought this about 2020 and then like this happens, like, oh, I thought I was gonna be like a Jedi and then I kill all these little Jedis because I'm actually Darth Vader before I become Darth Vader. So like, you know, you have these weird memes of like, this is 2020, I thought it was gonna be great, and then disaster struck. And so because you're on social media and you're feeling all of those things, sometimes it's easy to just like kind of be triggered and then want to do a post really quick. And so a practice that I've put in for myself is that if I'm going to post on something that is maybe more controversial, which isn't bad. It's not bad to post something controversial on social media. It's just about how we go about doing that. So if you're going to post something controversial, or you're going to post something where someone's debating about something on social media, I give myself like a 20 or 30 minute, I type my response somewhere else, not on there, so I can save it. I give myself a 20 or 30 minute break before I post it. I go back and read it. And then it gives me just that time, because that's a pro of social media. I can be silent for a while and then post when I feel like posting, communicate when I feel like communicating. And it gives me that time to just screen like, oh, okay, I'm going to edit it this way, or maybe I shouldn't say that, or like that sounded a little harsh, let me reword that. So just to give yourself like a 20, 30 minute break. And also just to try to gauge, you can use the tie-in of what Sarah was talking about earlier. You can gauge like where I am emotionally today. Is this a good time for me to interact with people on Facebook, or is this a bad time for me to interact with people on Facebook? If I want to interact with someone and maybe I live alone and I am having a bad day and I want to interact with someone on social media, should I interact with someone like on my full Twitter page or my full Facebook page? Or maybe should I private message someone that I'm close to and be like, hey, today's really rough. So you can just kind of like gauge, think about where you're at and go, okay, that kind of informs me. How safe is it for me to be? How wide I can communicate with people? Do I communicate with a whole group of people at once? Or do I pick like a select number of individuals and send them like a group Facebook message, or I send them like a group private message on Instagram and tell them like my day sucks and I hate everything, like, which is totally fine because that's how social media can help us stay in touch when we're separated right now and there's just a little bit more social distancing. Maybe we don't go out as often. And so we got Instagram, we have Twitter, we have Snapchat where we can send funny Snapchat things. We can send annoying things about our day on Snapchat, but we can just gauge, do I need to tell the whole world that? Do I need to tell my whole community that? Or do I need to tell like a select few friends that?
Yeah, that's great. And I also have the idea of sometimes when I am in a crappy mood and then just scrolling social media just puts me even worse mood.
Yeah.
And just brings on all the stress of the world already onto the stress of my day. And so then I was like, I gotta turn this off or I'm just gonna keep spiraling down and just not get out of this crappy mood. And so then I realized I really shouldn't be on my phone today. Let's go for a walk instead. So
yeah, for sure. And I think that is just a good example of like, hey, I can notice how I'm feeling. I'm paying attention to how I'm feeling, and I am then informing how my actions are going to be of whether, you know, going on social media is a good idea or going for a walk is a good idea. And that's kind of a tie-in too to what Sarah is going to bring up of just paying attention to how we're feeling and then trying to figure out what we need in order to get back to a safe space and how we're feeling. And so she's going to talk about something related to that next.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. A lot of the time, if not the whole time you're talking, you know, I have this theme running through my head, like, be aware, be aware, be aware of what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, where you are in time and space. And so we kind of talk about, you know, if you know anything about mental health, you've probably heard even in self-help books or maybe a quick YouTube video about grounding techniques. We bring them up constantly because they're that important, especially with such high impactful things going on in our society, and social media being there and it being seemingly so easy to attack and to be attacked, and for that to actually emotionally and physically and psychologically impact us in ways that, you know, we never thought possible. But some grounding ideas, you know, as you're talking about, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a question that I think people might be having as you're talking about this?
Yes.
So grounding techniques, what are they actually like trying to solve? Like why do we do them? What's the problem we run into?
I was going to ask that. I was like, I don't even know what a grounding technique is.
So that's a good question. Grounding techniques are kind of to put our feet back on the ground, to be aware of our body, to be aware of our five senses, to have an idea, to pull yourself back from the emotional things going on, the even physical things going on. It's to touch the world and to know that you're in the world, that you're real, that you're human, that you're touching, feeling, you know, smelling, hearing, and all those five senses that we have. It's to pull us back into reality. So some grounding techniques that can help with that is just, you know, when you're scrolling through Facebook or Twitter and you're feeling those, you know, either anger or sadness or frustration or whatever emotion you're feeling, do something as simple as take your eyes off the screen and fix it on something in the room. and breathe. And I mean, you know, we talk about breathing and taking in a deep breath, but most of us this day and age, especially with our society, it's go, go, go. We want things now. We want things, you know, so when we're breathing, we're not doing a full breath from the stomach. You know, we're actually stunting our own breath. So stop scrolling, stop reading, fix on something in the room where you're at. If you're sitting in the living room, let it be a knick-knack, and take in a deep breath until you can feel it in your stomach. So that's a good grounding technique. Go ahead.
I have a theory that we actually, as humans, don't know how to breathe.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I would say so.
So it's like a thing we have to practice. We have to like relearn. It's like we forgot how to breathe and we have to relearn how breathing works.
I'm like trying to think about my breathing right now.
Yeah.
Every time I say that, I'm like, how am I breathing right now?
Yep.
I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like, oh, that should be a no-brainer, but most of us in society, most of us in this world, in the United States, on the planet, you know, wherever we are in space and time, we're probably not breathing enough breath to really get the full benefit of oxygen to our body, which can affect you in just, you know, numerous amounts of ways. Another grounding technique, like I said, was just do something for the 5 senses, whether it be, you know, 5 things that you're seeing. We have see, smell, touch, taste, and hear. So just kind of going a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on the senses, whether you write it down and you're doing 5 things you know, can smell, or what order that you actually want it to be in, just to kind of pull yourself back, like just a quick snap back to reality, and then continue on with the pause, especially if you're feeling those high intense emotions. And of course, there's many other grounding techniques as well. I mean, we could go on and on.
Well,
Touching. I love petting cats.
there you go. That's a good grounding technique. That's texture. Yeah.
No, my daughter actually is like, Mom, you know that petting the cat is super calming and you should do it more often. I was like,
Aw. That's so sweet.
So
Yeah,
that kind of goes into, you know, we talk about physical sensory input, and you're kind of going to touch on that. Like, I'm going to throw that ball into your court, Marin.
Okay. Actually, yeah, it's very closely related to why grounding is important. Grounding is actually one of my, like, I love talking about grounding, but it also helps that we're trauma and dissociation therapists, because sometimes the word dissociation is confusing for people. So I feel like it's important that I like kind of give a definition about what dissociating is. Dissociating is actually something every single one of us do, even though it's like a mental health disorder, but it's only a disorder if it impacts your life to where you can't live your life as you normally would. If it impacts your life in a negative way, then we classify it as a disorder. So it has to do that. But so some of us dissociate more often than other people dissociate, right? But you're like hearing me talk about dissociation and you're like, that's great. What's that word mean? So, yeah. So, have you ever had a moment where you are driving in your car and you have a destination you get to and you get to the place, but you can't fully you're kind of surprised that you got there and you don't have like a full recollection of like driving to the place? You kind of like spaced out.
like you're on autopilot. And
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you kind of like, you know, you're just like, I feel like I did it, but I obviously did it. I'm here. But I don't remember it. Like autopilot is a really great way to describe that. Thank you. And so that is a form of dissociation. Dissociation is where we kind of, our brains can't always be 24/7 attached to the physicality of the world. Sometimes our brains are like, there's too much stimulus, and so we kind of check out for a little bit. And that's just something the brain does. It's just a skill the brain has. It's totally fine. Sometimes it's needed. And so our brain doesn't always ground itself completely in reality. It's also dissociation. A form of it is when you're daydreaming. If you're daydreaming and then like, you know, if you're a kid in class, especially if you're like virtually or if you're in person, wherever you are, and the teacher is talking and like, you know, the teacher is talking and you know what subject you guys are talking about, but then you kind of like daydream and you kind of like space out and you don't realize you're staring at the wall. but you're totally staring at the wall. And then you have that like anxiety moment where the teacher calls on you and you, for the life of you, you don't know what they said. You're like, oh no, you were dissociating. Just because the brain sometimes takes a break. It's like, all right, that was too much. I'm gonna chill out. And that's why when people are traumatized, they can struggle with dissociative disorders. When there's too much happening and there's too much pain, the brain will dissociate out and just protect itself from what is happening by trying to be not fully there, which is a good survival skill, right? I mean, like if I am, you know, if I'm like in the freezing cold Antarctic and I'm like slowly like just what, I don't know what, hypothermia, thank you. There we go. It's like,
I was gonna say dying.
yeah. You're slowly dying. If you're slowly dying because you're freezing, eventually your mind's gonna kind of check out, and it's just so like you don't have a complete like meltdown panic attack the whole time. It's just to help you out. It's trying to help you, and that's why it does that. So that's why grounding, sometimes when we check out too much, grounding gets us back to the physical world. And as far as what Sara was introducing about physical sensory input, right now, there is so much in our heads going on. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I'm just constantly in my head. There's a lot of like me trying to figure out why the world is acting the way it's acting, why certain people are responding the way that they're responding, why I'm responding the way that I'm responding. And I'm doing a lot of different learning about different things. And so a lot of it is just really, it's so much in my head. I'm so much in my head. And so sometimes I don't recognize how much I'm in my head. And I will either be really like intellectualizing or explaining or stressing out or having anxiety, or I'll be dissociating in my head. And I don't notice that, hey, you have not really experienced the physical world today. Sometimes when we binge YouTube, if we binge YouTube for hours, we've lost our ability to have physical sensory experience. And so we don't notice that our body's craving it. And sometimes, especially for those of us that struggle with addiction, that can sneak up on us and it can trigger wanting to act out in your addiction because your body doesn't have a lot of stimulus. So you want your body to have stimulus. It kind of catches up on you and you're like, oh, all of a sudden you're starved for stimulus. And when you're starved, what do? You like scarf down everything. You want something that's really like physically input, that's going to like alter who you are, that's going to alter your mind, that's going to make your body feel different. And you want it quick and you want it now and you want a quick fix because you were starved. But if you're not starved and you keep noticing, hey, my body needs more physical input, so it's not starved, then that's less likely to happen. So where you feel that starvation mode, you feel like you need a quick fix and you need something to just make that icky feeling of I haven't been connected to the world to go away. So you need physical sensory input, which could be, you know, you could have a sensory object in your pocket that you could go and like, maybe it's a smooth surface or a stress ball, and you just go quick and you like squeeze it or you play with it just to make sure that you stay there, that you're physically connected to something, that your body is getting some input. You could, if you like lighting candles, if you like scents, I always feel really woken up from just daydreaming or being spaced out if someone's peeling an orange, because I really like the smell of when somebody's peeling an orange and it wakes me up. So that's a good one. If you're in a desperate situation, maybe you do struggle with addiction, and you suddenly notice like I am starved for sensory input and I am about to go do something that is an acting out behavior of my addiction. Like I'm about to go for a quick fix. What you can do is do a sensory shock input for like a physical interaction with the world. You can go to the fridge and you can squeeze an ice cube as hard as you can, because that will shock your system into thinking about something else besides what you're thinking about. And it will also get your body more grounded to the world and less spaced out and less starved. You can also do something like take your hairbrush and just start brushing your arm. And that is like a prickly feeling that can kind of like, it's a texture thing that can like get that going. And it's like more of a really quick, like really intense high sensory input. So you can do things like that that will just help you reground, get out of your head, and not have to like stay up there all day just because you're so stressed out. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm learning so much today. Thank you guys. I love it. I love it. So I think we have one more topic that we were going to kind of hit on is about, so there's a lot going on in the world, and you might not know what to do about it or how to, I don't know, how to react or how to interact or just how to make things better. And so what a lot of people have been hearing is reading. So like, I know like when the Black Lives Matter kind of issue blew up and there was all this racial tension, I felt very, I don't know what the right word is, but I felt very useless or helpless, and I didn't know what to do. And so I started, I had a friend recommend a couple books to read just to get a better understanding of everything. And so then I started reading the books, and so it just was very helpful to me to just read and get more information. And so I thought you guys were maybe talk about a little bit about reading as a group, things that you can do like that. So.
Yeah, so, we talked about social media, and I mean, we put it to its paces this year. I mean, without a doubt. But kind of combining an old school with a new school thing, I guess, is to take reading, and you can have light reading. You take in fiction, and some fiction is heavier still. But when we're talking about the topics that go back to things that push those high emotions, and you're talking about reading books and kind of how that connects to Black Lives Matter or the civil unrest or policing, the presidential debate, mask wearing, COVID, anything that's going to kind of have those high emotional reactions. What Marin and I kind of suggest, and I'd like to say it's awesome because we're putting our money where our mouth is. I mean, we're doing this together, is we're taking these topics. For instance, we're doing white fragility. Now we did Jesus and John Wayne before, and we're taking these books, we're reading them. We're kind of saying, okay, this day through this day, we'll have these chapters done. Mm-hmm. And we're reading it on our own, and then we're coming together. And we get to see each other in person, but you could do it via Zoom, you could do it via phone, Facebook Messenger, in person, again, you're 6 feet distancing, however you want to do that. And we're discussing it, and we're giving each other the option to be open and honest. Like, hey, I can be with Marin, like, this is why I'm thinking, or this is what I'm thinking, this is why I'm thinking it. And she doesn't judge me. She's like, well, yeah, maybe, yeah, I hear you there. I get that. And then she'll throw in a little tidbit. And it's a way to kind of get into reading, to pull away from the social media, to have that interaction with people and to learn a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're talking to just like one person, just like a close friend, and you're not having this huge discussion of like, hey, I read this book and this is everything I learned from it on social media, because you're in a safe space, you're talking to a safe person, and you're discussing really intense, controversial, like things that need to be discussed, but discussed in a safe way.
Yeah, rather than like going to a book group and you feel like you have to come with like this super amazing insight or they're gonna judge you.
Yeah, I don't go to those because I feel like you have to be super smart to go to those.
I mean, what a great way. I mean, reading, we think of reading and intellectual, whether it's graphic novels or whatever way you're just getting the words into your system. But, especially when you're kind of touching on topics that are, I want to read things that challenge my thinking now. So that way, maybe I am going to say something to Marin where it's like, I'm going to sound like a racist, but this is what I am saying, and we discuss it. And this is a way that you can hopefully not feel so helpless because you're trying to gain insight and knowledge. I'm not saying that after you read things that challenge you, that it's going to change your mind. but it's still at least filling you up with the possibility that there are other thoughts, ideas, and this is maybe the leading, or, you know, the catapult behind some of the actions we see in society today.
Yeah, I
Go
think one of the most important things that I've learned through like reading all of that has been helpful is to not use the term, and this is like just things that like we've learned, but also ties into like how you handle that input, to not use the term racist as a pejorative or an insult, but as a descriptor for a behavior or a belief that makes you think that someone's behaviors or value or worth or stereotype is attached to their skin color. And the thing is that all of us can be, all of us have racist moments, and all of us do racist things. All of us do ableist things. All of us do sexist things. And I think the goal there, when we're struggling with all of this, is just to have more anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-ableist moments than we do the other ones. And just to like learn about that and try to get it to like, you know, just try to absorb that and learn like, oh, you know, I have done that before, and just acknowledge it, and then realize, well, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do my best to like try to do that less. And hopefully it's very few and far between. But I also think it's an important tie-in too, when you read some of these books, whatever you're reading about, to make sure that whoever you do pick to read them with, and just to like, so you do it in community, is to pick someone who is not the minority that what you're learning about is the focus of, so that that person doesn't get fatigued for having to educate the majority about themselves, because that's really emotionally traumatizing for people. So like, if you're reading about white fragility, read about white fragility with another white person, so that a Black person doesn't have to like chat with you about your white fragility.
Probably not going to read a book about disability with Marin and be like, what do you think, Marin? Like,
yeah, so I brought up ableism. You can't really like see that very well in Zoom, but like I have a physical disability. So, you know, when I talk about ableism, sometimes I'll bring up ableism with Sara and stuff like that, but like, sometimes it just helps to like vent to somebody else who's disabled about non-disabled people. And so like, you just try to make sure that you are mindful about like who you're talking to and who you're talking with, to make sure that you don't put that extra weight or fatigue to have to like educate them about that. It's just so like if you're learning something new, learn it with somebody who also is learning it as a new thing.
That's good advice. I like that. So we're kind of running out of time, and so I just wanted to thank you guys so much. I mean, we could talk forever, but no one wants to watch us chit chat forever.
I know.
So I'm going to kind of wrap it up. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for your time. I learned a ton today, which is going to be very hopefully helpful for me and my family, and just a couple practices that we can maybe start doing in our family. And then I just hope that people are able to, if they want to reach out to you, like schedule a appointment. Are you guys accepting new patients? Is there a way for you guys to do that?
Yeah, so quick shot, right? I mean, check out our website. It has all our information on it. It has email information, phone information. So that's www.kccpllc.com. So that'll have information. And then we do have a Facebook page, so that'll probably be connected to this as well. You can reach out to myself, Marin. We'll chat with you, kind of figure things out and what works best for us. I forgot to mention one of the other things that we kind of do specialize, addictions, and we're very familiar with personality disorders as well. So those are kind of things that I forgot, some main things, but yeah, it's cool. Website information is there.
We are.
Okay, so check out the website, check out the Facebook page. If you have questions, you can shoot them to me. I can give you Sara and them's email. Like, you guys know how to get a hold of us now. Hopefully someday soon, and maybe not soon, but hopefully someday we'll bring back the art group, because that was a really cool experience. And so we are working on it. We don't have a date yet, but maybe.
COVID.
We're trying.
COVID sucks. Can we just say that?
Yeah.
Pandemics, they just put a kink in everything.
Like, what the heck? Come on, man.
They're horrible.
So anyway, any last words? Otherwise, I'm going to shut us down and just thank you so much for your time and thank you for chatting with me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.